Join Sheikah and Tammy on the collaborative. Let's go!
The collaborative.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The collaborative.
What's that time?
On Facebook Tuesday at 7.
The collaborative. Who we have? Come on.
We have our leaders. We have our teachers and our parents. We have our authors. Story time at the end. Solving problems in our education system. Phenomenal women.
Join them on Facebook.
On Facebook Tuesday at 7. The collaborative.
It's that time. You're with Sheikah and Tammy.
The collaborative.
Phenomenal ladies. It's educational. Here on the Facebook. The collaborative.
The collaborative.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Tammy and I are live, and the collaborative is back, as you can see, and we are live here at Catawba Falls. If you were able to join us earlier, you got to see some of the event that we preparing for the shift. So that was here at the beautiful Catawba Falls as well. So we are just happy to be back and happy to relaunch the collaborative and celebrate our 1 year in business and of the collaborative platform and just 1 year anniversary.
Today has been really, really amazing, hasn't it, Sheikah?
It really has.
Yes, I'm so excited.
I am as well. I was very thankful for everyone that came in person, those of you that joined us online. It was a very productive and impactful conversation that, as we stated earlier, our vision for this is to transform into something more next year with our resiliency conference. And we want to make sure that we are doing our part to help prepare leaders, educators, teachers, to make sure that that resiliency exists to ensure our education system continues, but continues at a better level to be able to withstand the things that are taking place right now because of the pandemic.
Exactly. We have been so fortunate today to have some amazing thought leaders who joined us in the discussion of what those shifts need to look like as we move forward. And I personally can say that we are humbled by the support that we received from the community, from our colleagues, and from folks across the country. It's been absolutely an amazing day. We started with a bit of self-care because we really believe that that is important and that that is going to be a part of the way that things have to happen in education. We're going to have to pay attention to our children. We're going to have to pay attention to our teachers. We're going to have to pay attention to all our staff, but we're also going to have to pay careful attention to our leaders because we want them to be in the frame of mind to be able to lead in an effective way. As Sheikah said before, we are in a very beautiful location. We were going to join you guys tonight from outside and give you kind of a glimpse of what a beautiful property this is, but we didn't want to be out there and have to move because it was raining so hard. So we are very, very pleased to be able to have you guys joining us so that we are getting our voices heard and kind of recapping what today has been for us, as well as giving you a glimpse of one of the guests that joined us today. Gil Nome, Dr. Gil Nome, is going to be joining us to talk a little bit about some of those things that we shared on today that he focuses on with social and emotional learning and that resiliency, because that is something that we know as a company, we focus on the resiliency of leaders as well. And that's very important because we definitely want to be able to ensure that leaders across this nation, across the world, are able to withstand anything that they are faced with so that we can continue to serve our students and we can continue to move education forward in the trajectory that we want to see it go. We want to see that all students matter. That's one of those things that came up in our conversations today. We want to move forward in a way that honors the education of all our students and pays attention to those things that sometimes are possibly things that we just take for granted, like the mental health of our kids. That's something that is truly an important aspect of the work that we have to do. And if you didn't get to see or join us live today, go back and watch that because we had some folks here who have and are resources to be able to help us with some of those things that our students can benefit from.
Yes, definitely, Tammy. And I think the conversation was very impactful. And I'm excited to have Gil with us this afternoon or this evening to explain the resources that he has to help.
Absolutely.
And if this is your first time joining the collaborative, a year ago, at the start of the pandemic, Tammy and I started this platform to try to bring people together. We are natural problem solvers. So we saw where people were struggling, parents were struggling with things at home, students were struggling, teachers were struggling, and leaders. So we felt like bringing everyone together in one space would help us to navigate some of these problems. And the collaborative was born. So we are back with our relaunch. So again, if you're just joining us, if you would tell us if you're an educator, a parent, community member, or an author, let us know where you're from. Our vision is for the conversation to spread to all 50 states, and definitely share the feed on your page, invite others. We would like for the information to spread high and wide. So thank you again for joining us. Can you believe it's been a year, Tammy?
Child. Sometimes it's hard to believe, but then at other times when we think about the work that we've done and the people that we've met and been supported by, it seems like just yesterday when we got started. So I guess it's one of those things, depending on what we're doing, it feels more like we're just getting into this. And then when you think about it from the perspective of some of the things that we've been able to do, it does resonate that it's been an entire year and a good one. It's been a really good one.
It really has. And partly because of those of you that join us and tune in and are willing to collaborate and share. We have met some amazing people through the year. Those of you that are joining, some that are regulars, especially on Saturdays that we know by name when we see you pop up.
Yes.
We just enjoy the network. As Josh talked this morning about that PLN. So the Professional Learning Network, it has been something that really has helped us get through the year.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope that what we've been providing has been helpful to you as well. Definitely. So usually our show is an educational show. We always start with on this day in history. And so on this day in history, the collaborative was born a year ago. And we are happy and elated and celebrating that that year. When we were on 1 year ago, our first episode was with Dr. Amika Thomas and also Tyree Smith and Laura Phillips. Dr. Amika Thomas is a superintendent in Lawrence 55, And she was also our Storytime author. So that particular, our first episode had 3,000 views. So after that, we thought, well, wow, people must really want to hear what we're talking about. So we decided to continue. And here we are, still at it, still trying to make sure that people have what they need, the resources, and that people are sharing, collaborating, and communicating across the different areas, not just educators talking to educators, but we all have to talk together, parents, community members. It takes a village, and we have to do that if that's going to be what's best for our children.
Sure.
So tell me, what was your favorite episode?
I think, honestly, we have been so fortunate to have so many amazing guests on with us. It's hard to say and just pick one of those because they've been so powerful. And I feel like we've enjoyed talking with and learning from everybody that we've had on here. So it's hard for me to pick. I think that overall, it's just been a really great experience outside of even something that I would have ever imagined that I would do. And just in total transparency and full disclosure, when Shika said that this was something, this is what we should do from Create and Educate, I was like, what? You have got to be kidding. And she's like, no, we should do this. This is going to be very good for what people want to do with us, because what we're saying is we want people to collaborate. That's what we're banking on right now. So I personally have grown from all of our guests. The thing that I do think is that I think our episode with Dr. Dickey was probably the most popular one, don't you?
I think so. And also the summer reading and math episode was very popular.
It really was.
Which really made me feel like, wow, people really want the resources. They want to know what to do with their children. And one parent even reached out and said, please do an episode on math and just show us how you just, go through the math problems, the new way of doing math with the children. So we listen as we get feedback, and we do plan to have some of our mathematicians on that can help parents with some of those lattice math. That's a difficult one for me too. So we plan to have that episode to help parents to really understand what their children are learning, because it is different from when we went to school. I can attest to that myself.
It's very different, but I think what will happen when we do provide that space for that conversation, I think parents will begin to feel more comfortable, because even as a teacher, when you're teaching math differently than you learned it, it isn't the easiest of things to do. But once you have figured out how this is supposed to work, it starts to make sense to you. So I think that will be very helpful to parents.
I think so too. And, parents, don't feel bad, because when students would bring their math books into my office as the principal and say, could you help me with this? And they would show me how the teacher showed them, which was foreign to me. I would say, look, we're not going to do it that way. We're going to do it Miss Houston's way. So put that aside and tell your teacher that I didn't know how to do it, but I've shown you this way.
And don't listen to her parents, because we want you to definitely be able to support your children the way that they're learning. And Shika's absolutely right. The bottom line is helping kids to be able to master the standards that they're expected to learn. So we're excited about what lies ahead for us as a collaborative. And we'll talk a little bit more about what our new format is going to look like. But we're really excited because we are going to bring up someone who is very, very authentic, and someone who has come to mean a lot to us. And we truly appreciate the friendship and the partnership that we have with Dr. Gil Noem. So thank you for joining us again this evening, Gil.
Thank you, Dr. Shika. And Principal Tammy. This is like how you're labeled here, so I will use the same. It is great to be with you again. You're all witnessing the beginning of not only a colleagueship but a friendship, and I feel very lucky to be invited here. It sounds like from what I just heard, the tail end is that there are parents, teachers, other educators, administrators. That's the kind of group that's kind of assembled here tonight.
Yes, and that's the whole premise behind the collaborative, bringing everyone together because it takes that village and we're all involved with the children. So if we are talking together in a space and understanding one another's lingo and our whys and the reason why we do things, things can go a lot better for children if we're working together.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So that makes a lot of sense, and I'm really excited because this is the best way to also talk about my work and the contribution we all want to make together, because it does take a village. It's not possible. And if anyone thought that you could just ship the kids to school and you go to work as parents, I'm a parent too, go to work and somehow the division of labor works, and in between you can complain about the teachers a little bit, because that's always good to complain. We all like to complain. And the teachers complain a little bit about the parents, then the kids kind of muddle along and everyone is happy, or a little unhappy, but happy enough.
Mhm.
Well, that is, if anyone was not asleep during COVID, and unfortunately we're still in the middle of it, we have learned that didn't work before the pandemic, but it certainly didn't work during the pandemic. Because suddenly it became clear that schools aren't just about kids learning. They certainly are mostly, but actually during the pandemic, it was more important that the kids had a place to go, to socialize, to learn how to have emotions, to learn how to act with peers and make friends, and to have other mentors and other people who care for them, called teachers and administrators and after-school providers, be there for them. And it was a trauma for everyone that the children were at home all the time. I mean, much as we love our children, we need to also have a little time off, don't we?
Yes, I can attest to that.
The children felt like suddenly there wasn't any complaining about school. There was like, where's school? I want to get out of my house, my apartment, my wherever I am, and I want to be there with everyone. And they wanted to have their friends after school. They wanted to play soccer or any other sport. And we suddenly realized more than ever how interconnected we are, how much we need each other, how much teachers have to rely on parents, and how much parents have to rely and be thankful that there are teachers. So it feels to me, in all my discussions with educators and parents and also young people who I interview or talk to as much as I can, it became clear that there was a kind of joint humanity. We're kind of in this together. We really need each other, and that was super important. Now, who's Roz? Now that we have her here.
So the comments that I'm putting up, Gil, people are commenting on our live feed as we're talking. So
I see.
Them up so that way everyone can see them.
I
So
see.
Gil
I see. Okay. I wanted to be sure that I can congratulate Roz kind of in a way that is appropriate to the case.
I think she's congratulating us, Gil.
Yes.
And listen, we don't want to shortchange you on an introduction so that everybody knows who we are honored to have tonight. So we're going to give you an introduction, a formal introduction, so that
Okay.
we're able to introduce you to the folks and everybody can know who we are
Okay.
talking with tonight.
Can I just finish this one sentence? Since I'm already on a roll, and it's
Sure.
fine. This one sentence, which is that I think we have discovered a common humanity in our isolation, in kind of being at home, in realizing how interconnected we are, how relational we are, how much we really need each other. And the same is true for work. It's not only for children, families, and schools, it's for really every aspect of our lives. And the reason why I'm saying that is that common humanity, it's not only our roles as teachers, as parents, as administrators, but it is really that common humanity that gives us a chance to reconnect. I think in a deep way, because in some ways, when you say it takes a village, we all agree, but it can easily be kind of a overused metaphor. But what's not an overused metaphor, and what can blow new life into that idea of it takes a village, is this idea that we have really discovered our vulnerability. We discover it every day. And vulnerability, like our foreparents, has brought communities together. We needed to be resilient, and we discovered, whether it was immigrants to this country, whether it was, slavery, whether it was the Holocaust, whatever these kind of extremes were, even in less extreme ways, we discovered fast that we really, really deeply need each other in times of crisis and beyond. And so maybe this is a moment of crisis again, where we can actually think more like, how can we support each other and support each other's mental health and each other's happiness and productivity. And through that also discover kind of new ways to have schools and new ways in which parents and teachers work together. Anyway, that was my introduction.
Thank you, Gil. And you're spot on. We appreciate that insight. And Dr. Ross Gaskin is a teacher coach. She works with teachers, and her platform is called The Village. So she's one of our Professional Learning Network supporters, and we support her as well. Dr. Gil Noem is the director of the Institute of the Study of Resilience in Youth at McLean Hospital and founder and director of PAIR Incorporated. Dr. Noem has a strong interest in translating research and innovation to support resilience in youth in educational settings, and has published over 200 papers, articles, and books on topics related to child and adolescent development and risk and resiliency. He served as the editor-in-chief of the journal New Directions for Youth Development, Theory, Practice, and Research, with a strong focus on out-of-school time, and also provides consultation to youth development, education, and child mental health organizations. So we are super excited to have you with us again, Gil, and also introduce you to our platform, The Collaborative. And we're just very excited to have you.
Exactly. And for anybody that didn't get to join us today, Dr. Gil Noem was one of our featured guests for our Preparing for the Shift Lunch and Learn. The event brought educators from the school level and the university level, the community, all together to be able to have that conversation about what educating during the pandemic has been like, and to explore what educating after the pandemic is going to take for us to move forward and to create some of those shifts. It really was a phenomenal event. And I'm not saying that just because Shika and I were the host or Create and Educate sponsored the event, but it truly was worth the exhaustion that we are getting ready to head into, because it's been a very, very impactful day. Gil, tell us what you think the most important thing that we gained from today was.
Well, first I want to say that, by the way, this was the first introduction where Harvard wasn't mentioned, which is so great. All these things that I founded, Harvard was founded in 1632, and the things I founded, as you can see, I'm not the youngest person, but I wasn't born in 1632. So the fact that my little, labs and centers that have grown, to 25, employees and so on, that are under the umbrella of Harvard, are more important than the university. So I feel very proud of that. But I'm also proud that the work is in Boston and is under that umbrella, because there's so many amazing colleagues. Anyway, today, the first thing I want to say is just having us all come out of our holes, little holes called houses, and under our roofs where we were for 18 months and longer, was already kind of huge. And for you to have the courage to bring all these people together under these circumstances where you don't know whether you have to cancel, was fantastic. And I could see that their spirit was really high. The second thing that I took from this is that all the educators that spoke, and there were many of them actually, who got up there and spoke, they all had passion. They all spoke from their heart. They all are dedicated, really without any exception, to change, to really using this moment to bring about change. Whether they talked about curricula, administrative issues, or mental health, or socio-emotional learning, whatever the topics were, people spoke, I think, both from a place of authenticity and with a goal of, let's use this moment. This is something I've been saying a lot. And many people have said this. Let's not just bounce back. Let's use this moment to evolve, develop, grow. Because you don't have that many moments where a whole system, like the education system, is really shaking at the foundation. And that's a moment where you can actually build certain things, because people are more open. People are not, smug, kind of saying, okay, well, it's working. It's not working so well, but it's working well enough. Why kind of make a lot of noise? This is not the moment to do that, because we couldn't capture the kids, while they were at home. We just didn't. Some people were just especially gifted. The whole education system was not prepared for virtual learning. And it, with some exceptions, it was really not great. It wasn't great for the teachers. It wasn't great for the students. And so I think it really created a whole lot of improvisation, a lot more kind of willingness to experiment. And that's what I took from today.
Thank you for that insight, Gil. And I agree with you. I think that, all of the educators did have passion, and everyone is passionate about seeing things shift for the better, for the betterment of our children and educating them. And this really fits in well with the work that you're doing, and the book that you've written, 10 Big Bets. And usually at this part of the segment, we usually ask our guests what they're reading, and we're just going to say you're reading 10 Big Bets, and we're reading 10 Big Bets actually as well. So tell us about your book and how it could be helpful to schools and districts and educators.
Okay. Well, first I want to thank you for asking. That's really great. First, I want to just put it up here for a moment so people can see it. And the reason why I want to do that, it's 10 Big Bets, and the subtitle is Transforming Education During the Pandemic and Beyond. And the reason why I wanted you to see this is that I'm extra proud because my son is an artist and painter. And so I asked him whether, he would do the the honors and kind of give me one of his paintings or paint something that I could use. So
Wow.
it's a kind of co-production. I do the text, but he gave the spirit, and it's like very colorful. And the idea was that, hope is very important during hard times. I mean, I wrote this book exactly from Memorial Day to Labor Day a year ago. And then it took a while for it to be edited and published and so on. And I thought actually that we would be now in this phase of beyond the pandemic. But I had no idea that this would actually be this long, which is good for the sales of the book, but bad for us.
Yes.
Because we want this to be over. But it is really this idea that it's not just about the pandemic, it's also what it is beyond. And what I suggested to educators and families and parents is to start grounding us in kind of the psychological well-being of the young person, and to expand that also to academic well-being or resiliency. I use the word resiliency a lot. So academic resiliency, and then really mental health resiliency and support, and even community resiliency. So there are chapters. In the first one, I start with hope, because I think we need to really figure out how we as adults, even though we are shaken, how we can actually not get disgruntled and scared, but really project authentically for our children that there is hope, there is a future, and that we just have to get through this. I think that's really important. And I think it's very important because the young people who are attached to us look for us as teachers and adults and parents who provide that security. And it's just very hard to provide at times when you really are struggling with your own issues and can get very, very preoccupied. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is that there are chapters about engaged learning. The whole issue is we can't just put huge pressures on the kids because we're put under pressure that the students are going to catch up, because the catching up has to be through engagement, not through you have to do it and we're going to test you. It has to be slow, methodical. They're coming out of something and we have to give it a little time. And the third thing is norms and rituals. I spend a lot of time on the issue that families and schools have to create norms, new norms that the students have looked out for themselves. They weren't like in a collective setting. And you have to expect a lot of turmoil early on in the school year and even through the first year, because students have to re-engage and have to say, okay, this is my school, this is my community. I commit to this community. They're not just going to follow rules because they've made their own rules. And that will take time, especially with the older students, like once they reach adolescence. And then I think it goes from there to the issue of mental health. I think we have a huge mental health surge in this country for adults and children. And I suggest in the book both how schools can actually use existing resources in a new way, by making actually people, the adults in the schools, mentors, and not only look for therapists outside because we don't have enough, or inside the schools counselors. Every adult can have a really important role. But even more so, what holds this book together, is this okay, or am I talking too long? Do you have
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay, good. I just want to be sure that you don't have like 7 other questions and I only get to the first 2. No, I think that what's needed right now is a vision, and that's what I really worked on most, of what do we consider thriving? What do we consider a resilient young person or a resilient adult? Because we have long lists of psychopathology, of medical diagnoses, of what depression is, what anxiety, all the things that can go wrong, go wrong. We have long lists. But when it comes to like saying, okay, faculty in the school, okay, parents and community, what is really our goal of creating the strengths? What is really a strong young person? What's our goal here? And so
Mm-hmm.
over many years of research, and I kind of summarize that, I developed something called the Clover model, which is a child development model, where we have found that 4 dimensions are really what can make out our vision, our collective vision of what thriving is. And the first one is uh, active engagement. This is like the body, the child, the adolescent having a body, feeling good about their body, having sleep, having good nutrition, having time in schools, for example, for recess, having not just to sit the whole day behind a desk. That's kind of the idea of a one of the elements. The second element is what we call voice.
Mm-hmm.
So the young person and the teacher, by the way, it's all true for adults too,
Mm-hmm.
having voice age appropriately and pro-socially, but really being asked, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? Can we debate the opinion? We want you to see relevance in what you learn. We want
Mm-hmm.
you to get engaged because it is something you want, not just this is something that all the adults tell you you have to do. And if you're 6 years old, you already have to start thinking about college.
Mm-hmm.
Then the third one is belonging relationships. Schools and families are highly relational. They're human relations organizations. But when you kind of go into some schools, especially after elementary school, middle schools, and high schools, somehow many schools lose that soul, that relational soul. Again,
Mm-hmm.
not every teacher, but as institutions. And I think they also lose a kind of caring environment for the faculty. So
Mm-hmm.
teachers feel kind of not in a really strong relational setting. So we have to kind of make these settings places where people can trust, where they can feel they belong. So the whole issue of belonging becomes essential. And the last piece of thriving is what I would call reflection and call meaning making. It has to be a young person who sees meaning in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
It's the antidote to depression. If you're depressed, you don't see much meaning. You just
Right.
barely get through the day. But if you really have a sense of, I know where I'm going, I have purpose, I don't know it every day, but I have people around me who can support me to kind of still believe in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I have voice where I can actually assert myself, and I really have a body that gets exercised and I can kind of fall back on, and I can, be mindful about things. So I have found that you can add lots of other things, spirituality, creativity, lots of things, but we see those actually as existing in those 4 fundamental elements. Kind of it's a rework of Maslow also, kind of fundamental needs. These are
Mm-hmm.
kind of the modern fundamental elements of
Mm-hmm.
socio-emotional thriving. And then what I then do is to take that into every chapter and say, if those are the elements and we have research evidence, then what does that mean in terms of mental health, in terms of socio-emotional development, in terms of norm settings? Can you look at your rituals in the school? Do you have physical rituals? Do you have assertiveness and voice rituals? Do you have combinations? For example, I went to a school that had a circle, and every Thursday, and they all brought instruments, but instruments were like, cans and things that made noise. And they,
Mm-hmm.
as a group, came together. That was the belonging side. Everyone had a voice through the instrument, their instrument, and they began to be a collective. And at first, it was horrible. And I said, "These poor neighbors. I mean, I feel bad for them. How do they do this?" But it became, after about 5 minutes, it became rhythmic and connected, and it was physical. Everyone was moving around to the rhythm and kind of dancing. And, reflection, I'm not sure how much reflection there was, but not every ritual has to have all 4 elements. But if you capture 3, and that became something that everyone loved. And I just wanted, for those parents who are here, I want to also say, try to think about, and of course, if you read my book, which is not very expensive, and we'll make sure that for you who are in schools, that you can get copies and actually get also a way in which, like, facilitation guides that we're working on together with this team here who's here, so that you in schools can actually start discussing and thinking through how can we use that to actually build what's really most important to us. But you as families also need to have that variation. You probably have it, but you can start seeing, do we have all these elements? Do our rituals, our family traditions, do they capture enough of the things that we feel or that we have found really make a strong, thriving, resilient young person? So let me stop with that.
Well, we think we admire your work, Gil, and definitely find it very important for right now, because as we're working with different leaders and our collaborative network, that's what we're hearing. Everyone is exhausted. They feel like their needs aren't being met, and that is what's missing, that social and emotional learning piece for the staff, for the students. So I think that schools, really have focused a lot, because that's what we are used to doing, focusing on the academic part and trying to get everybody caught up. We missed a segment, and we have to make sure that social and emotional piece is included, because if it's not, like you said, with the hierarchy, the children or the adults never are ready to get to that next part of the academics, because we haven't met their emotional needs yet to get them engaged.
Yeah.
So this is so important, and what is needed right now is what people are crying out for. So we were excited to hear about your book, and that you also have a grant for schools to be able to get it implemented, the schools
Right.
that hopefully are interested and that we'll get to work with. So with that also comes training as well. Did you want to speak to a little bit to that?
Yeah, I want to speak to 2 things about this that your comment triggered. The first thing is that socio-emotional learning is very in these days, and it's a really great thing. And we worked for decades, really, to make this happen. We, meaning collectively, a number of people in both academia and practice. So it's really great that the doors have opened. One of the things that's really hard with socio-emotional learning, that there's so many skills, so many elements, that teachers and administrators get kind of confused. What should we concentrate on? And so that's why I wanted to create something that's simpler, but simplicity this side of complexity. So it's you go through complexity, but then you get to something like the basic colors, so you can mix and match, but at the end you really still have 3 or 4, fundamental colors. I also wanted to say one really important thing that is important for us also in training, and we have a very diverse training team that works nationally and even internationally. The thing that I address in the book and really cannot be addressed enough is the issue of equity, which has been important to us before Floyd and the tragedy. It's not that it just started there, but it's so great that right now it has become part of everyone's thinking. Because when you look at who suffered most during the pandemic, it's people of color, it's communities of color. I mean, hands down, the statistics are horrible. That, the loss of jobs, the loss of life, the mental health problems, they were in every community. But the brunt was carried by communities of color. And I just think that, we have to make that a strong, strong focus. Also, when we talk about all the issues that I talk about in the book, for example, norms, typical thing is, statistics show that boys of color, but also girls, are punished more severely, are punished more early, are considered more grown up than they are. So the consequences are more serious, especially for girls who are seen as maturing faster. Very unfair use of discipline methods that uh, make it necessary for us to think about norms differently. If we want to make a change there, just as one example, we have to create norms with the students together. We have to make them culturally relevant. We have to connect to the lives and families of our young people instead of saying, you are not conforming to our white norms, whatever they are, so we are going to discipline you. So there is so much work to be done. And so in terms of our training, so we make that a priority in our training, but we also make these other elements that I described. We have short trainings, 2 hours for PD. We have half days, we have full days, we even have multiple days as a training program. We're talking to you about certification. We're thinking about train the trainer. Our goal is, through our organization, is to create evidence-based practice. So everything we do is tied back. We want to just say, if we support it, if we use it, we want to see not deep studies, not double-blind studies that have been done for years, but we want to see some evidence. Because
Right.
we want parents and teachers to trust that same way that we ask that of medicine, we want to ask that of education. We want to say this works, or it doesn't totally work yet, but we're getting there. We want more evidence. So all that is done with evidence, but then next to the evidence is that teacher voice has to come in. So all the principles that we have here, because the physical, the assertiveness, the belonging, the reflection, underlies our educational process, because it's not just SEL, it's also how people learn. So how adults learn. So they need to have hands-on, they need to discuss in small groups, they need to feel like there's a connection with them as people. So some of it is really personal, focused on them, and to figure a way in which they can speak to each other, and they have to reflect. So that's, we have lots of topics. We have actually 9 trainings right now that we created for opening schools. 3 of them are around the issue of belonging, norm setting, rituals. 3 of them are on mental health, multisystemic, like tiers using the Clover model. And the last 3 are engaged learning. What does it mean to engage in learning when you do academic work? A lot of it was virtual, but now it's really kind of taking what we've learned in the virtual realm back into schools.
It's very important work, Gil. And one of the things Sheikah and I really were drawn to with the work that you all are doing is that your work on equity centers around equity and not assimilating children to be what is considered a norm, but allowing that space for us to give students exactly what they need and be who we need to be to help to develop those young people. So we do appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you very much. And for all of you guys that are listening, if you are interested in getting a copy of 10 Big Bets, please reach out to Sheikah and I, and we can help you with getting a copy of that work so that you can have that in your schools.
That's so generous. That you're going to do that. This is not like saying you have to send your check. This is to say, we want to give this for you as a gift, as a way to kind of continue the dialogue.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you
And-
so much for having me.
Thanks,
Thank
Gil.
you, Gil. We
you.
appreciate you being here and are excited to partner with you all at PAIR and with the 10 Big Bets and continue the work, because like Tammy said, the work that you all do really complements the same type of thing that we are focused on with cultural relevancy and resiliency, and making sure that students see themselves in literature, and also our framework on helping them build relationships through literature, which is a SEL focus as well. So our work really complements each other, and we are very excited to partner with you.
That's
Definitely.
good. We have a long way to go and a good path.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gil.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Good
Gil.
night. So we are hopeful that you understand what the 10 Big Bets is about. And if your school is interested in any of the work that Gil talked about or the book, they have received a grant. So if you reach out to us, we can get you a copy of that book. Several of the people that joined us on Saturday have reached out, and we're in the process of getting them their books as well. And also, we can set up meetings about any type of work that you may need for your school or your system or your district, centered around SEL and what the organization has to offer. So we are at that time. For those of you who normally join the collaborative, it is story time. And Tammy has picked out a phenomenal book that we are going to share the screen
I don't know
and
if you guys
show.
can see it. It's called I Am Famous. And as Shika's pulling up the book, we want to just say, because we are very, very passionate about having literacy experiences for children. We know that we believe that reading is going to take our kids to where they need to be. And so we have to help to develop them as readers. She also mentioned how important it is for our kids to see themselves in text and to provide those experiences to children to have their confidence built and to be taught those things that make them self-aware and help them to become definers for themselves. Because what we know is if we don't name ourselves, other people will. So we want to teach our children from very early that they own themselves, and we want to encourage them to always be their best. So the story that we chose tonight is very, very special because it's one of those stories that empowers. And the story really is affirming a little girl and how her family has made her believe that she is so special and phenomenal that she thinks that she's famous. And we want to encourage you, parents, to speak over your children, to instill in them these concepts about who they are, because it's super important. And I'll share this because I think it's important for us to know that this is exactly how children are developed. This book was a gift to my niece when she was expecting. Her little girl wanted books gifted to her for her baby shower. This book came from Aunt Karen. She had it autographed for the shower, and we were going to give it to the baby, Abigail, when she was born. So when she was born, I would read this book to her. Brittany, I think, has read it to her. Kay has read it to her. And we've all read to her about how famous she is. Shika is here to tell you that Abby thinks she is famous.
She does.
She is just Miss Personality. And I really believe because we have power in our words, we have to know that the words we speak to and over our children are very, very important. So we're going to share this story with you. And this story should be called Abigail is Famous, because that's what this story speaks to, who Abby is, just totally full of life and infamous. So we're going to share I Am Famous. And the author of this story, there are two authors, Tara Lube and Becky Cady. And one of them is actually from Fort Mill,
South Carolina.
So we're very, very humbled to be able to present this reading to you from someone who is local and an artist. So the story tonight is I Am Famous. I am famous. I am an actress, a singer, and a dancer. Daddy says I'm also a diva, whatever that means. A star is born. I've been famous for as long as I can remember. It was obvious early on that I had special talents, a unique style, and a flair for the dramatic. Because I am famous, I get special treatment wherever I go. I have my own chef, driver, and housekeeper. My fan club spoils me. All my movies go viral. The paparazzi follow me everywhere. In showbiz, that means photographers who take pictures of famous people like me. They bother me. I'm sorry, sometimes it's annoying. They bother me when I'm dining. They chase me while I'm driving. They invade my privacy. Do something cute, they beg. Oh, the price of fame. Tonight, I'm performing at Grandpa's birthday party. This will be my biggest show yet. My stylist arrives. We discuss the right look. I hit the red carpet. Wait, I need my sunglasses. Famous people always wear sunglasses. Break a leg, Daddy says. In showbiz, that means good luck. It's a packed house. I've never seen so many fans. Showtime. For Act 1, I sing Grandpa's favorite song. Uh-oh, what were the words again? Just keep smiling. The show must go on. La 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 la. Intermission. Now for Act 2, I dazzle them with my latest dance moves. Ouch. Just keep smiling. The show must go on. And the grand finale. How humiliating. I'll never work in this town again. What's happening? Is that applause? It's my fans. They still love me no matter what. And that's the best part about being a star. I am still famous. It's exhausting being famous, but someone's got to do it. So what we want to leave you guys with is this. The little girl had a mishap at the end of her performance, but she didn't fall to pieces and she didn't lose herself because she has been taught that, of course, she uses famous, but what that is self-confidence. And she's been taught to know that no matter what, her family's going to love and support her. So we want to encourage you to make sure that that's the way that we're conversing with our children.
And we wanted to bring you the read aloud today because as we discussed earlier today at the conference, Tammy and I's work, a lot of our work centers around literacy, and our real framework for literacy helps to bridge that literacy as well as SEL together. And we are using the stories and books and read alouds to help teachers build relationships with students. So we actually have a set of books that we focus on where there's self-awareness, the different things that helps students develop all of those things that CASEL has identified of those SEL targets. So that is a lot of the work that we do with literacy. We also make sure that teachers understand what those best practices are with literacy and making sure that children have that access to culturally relevant books. So we are so thankful for those of you that have supported our work and have found value in our work. We are happy to be working with schools in Michigan, Ohio, as well as New Orleans. And we hope to add other schools and educators. So if you are interested, please reach out to us and we will let you know, our availability as well as what fits what your needs are, because we do an analysis and an assessment. So for those of you that have supported us over the year, we appreciate you. We thank you. Our Create and Educate page is up to about almost 3,000 followers. So continue to help us build the community, share and invite others to like the page. If you would also like to help us with our YouTube page, we don't have many subscribers there. So visit our website, www.createandeducate.solutions. And if you follow us on all platforms, those are the types of things that helps us build. So we always end our segments with, there is no such thing as a child who hates to read. There are only children who have not found the right book. So for the next Tuesdays in the month of October, our format is a little different because we do our Saturday PD with our PLN network. We are changing the format of the collaborative. We will have our live show where we'll have a guest or an expert on for the first Tuesday of the month, but the other Tuesdays will be story time Tuesdays. So we are looking for featured authors. We will explain some best practices that teachers and parents can use at the beginning, and then it will be story time for our featured authors. So please send in if you're an author of a children's book, please go to our website, fill out the contact form, and we will be looking forward to sharing your book and your read aloud with our listeners. So thank you all for joining the collaborative.
And thank you for all your support today. We appreciate you.
Yes. And thank you for those of you that stuck with us to the end. Dr. Roz, we appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Roz.
Yes. And we will see you all next Tuesday, same time. The collaborative is back. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Joy Sheikah and Tammy on the collaborative. Let's go!
The collaborative.
1, 2, 1, 2.
The collaborative.
What's that time?
On Facebook Tuesday at 7.